ومن صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاسبا فستعلمون كيف نذير. ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد. پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے زینب نے دی صدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے زینب نے دی صدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ کیسے پڑے ہیں جسم کے ٹکڑے جدا جدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے ہے میرے غریب کا کیا حال کر دیا، گھوڑوں سے لاشا دشت میں پامال کر دیا، پہچانوں کس طرح سے بدن سے ہے سر جدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے پہچان لوں گی میں تمہیں، آواز مجھ کو دو، دم توڑتے جو دیکھا ہے کریل جوان کو، آنکھوں میں اب بہن کی اجالا نہیں رہا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے پہچاننا تمہارے لیے بھی کٹھن ہوا، دیکھا ہے پہلی بار جو زینب کو بیردہ، آتی ہے شرم جلد، بتا دو مجھے ذرا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے کرتا رہا ہے ذبح کی کوشش کہاں کہاں، کرتا رہا ہے ذبح کی کوشش کہاں کہاں، خنجر کے ہے کٹی ہوئی گردن پہ بھی نشان، کاٹا ہے کس طرح سے ستمگار نے گلا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے زینب نے دی صدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ آہستہ سے جواب دو، آہستہ سے جواب دو، ہے ساتھ اس کی ماں، آہستہ سے جواب دو، ہے ساتھ اس کی ماں، کیا اب تمہارے پاس ہے معصوم بے زباں، ننھا سا لاشا کس کا یہ سینے پہ ہے رکھا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے وہ بھی تمہاری طرح، وہ بھی تمہاری طرح سے زخمی نہ ہو کہیں، دل کو میرے یہ لگتا ہے، دل کو میرے یہ لگتا ہے موجود ہے کہیں، آتی ہے ماں کے رونے کی نزدیک سے صدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ پتھر ہٹا کے لاش سے زینب نے دی صدا، کیا تم میرے حسین ہو؟ صلی اللہ علی محمد و آل محمد۔ سورة المباركة الفاتحة۔
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dr. Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sir Fatah is requested for the Salih Sawab of the Marhumin listed on the screen and for all Marhumin. Al-Fatiha. Yaman Yujibu is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those that need here and elsewhere. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ يَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ يَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Annual Interfaith Iftar. The Masjid Hayy Irish team is excited to invite you to the annual Interfaith Iftar on Wednesday, March 12th at 5:45 p.m. This special event, themed Together We Thrive, will bring people of diverse faith and backgrounds to engage in meaningful dialogue, share a meal, and strengthen community bonds. Please mark your calendars and save the date. More details will follow soon. Sponsorship opportunities. As we prepare for this year's annual Interfaith Iftar, we invite you all to support this meaningful event. Your partnership would be invaluable in helping us to bring together individuals from diverse backgrounds to foster dialogue, understanding, and unity within our community. Your support will play a key role in making this gathering a success, and we are deeply grateful for your consideration. We look forward to the opportunity to partner with you in this important event. For more information, please contact Brother Sajjad Ali Virji at 407-719-6575 or email us at outreach@masjidhay.org. Community Service Project, Build a Bed Day. Masjid Hayy's Irish team invites all community members to join the Community Service Project in partnership with the Lake Mary Stake of the Christ of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Join us in building 80 beds for children in need. In Seminole County, many children lack a proper bed to sleep in. On Saturday, February 8th, faith groups and community organizations will come together at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Lake Mary to provide these children with beds of their own. They are looking for 350 volunteers, and various shifts are available to accommodate everyone's schedule. Volunteer hours for students will also be provided. We invite you to be a part of this meaningful initiative and make a difference. The registration link will be shared through our newsletter and WhatsApp messages. Masjid Hayy will provide 350 water bottles for volunteers and 10 bed-in-a-bag sets for the children. For additional information or to donate, please contact Sister Manaz Manikia at 407-773-5937. At this time, I'd like to call Dr. Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani for tonight's lecture with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير. والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تؤتي الملك ممن تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتضل من تشاء. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, here in Florida or across the globe, wherever you may be hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: who is Zainab? Salamullahi alayha. When you come to a personality, some people transcend what it means to be human. Some people transcend what it means to be, achieve the peak of what it means to be a human being and humanity. Tonight we discuss a personality such as Bibi Zainab al-Kubra, salamullahi alayha, who, when it comes to her personality, we learn tremendous gems about how to live life, regardless of whether one is a male or a female. And we discuss her and understand the eloquence of truth. That is the power that is there in truth through this personality. Or further than this, we understand the flag bearer of courage. In an environment where many men, when men are considered to be courageous, she had the courage of thousands of men in one person, one persona. Bibi Zainab did, to be able to speak in the darbar, to be able to have the courage and the strength throughout those times. She teaches us valuable lessons on how to achieve success in this dunya and also in the akhirah. Bibi Zainab teaches us how to understand and how to live in this world with balance, with moderation. That is, to not be completely aloof from society, but at the same time, in order for you to be able to excel in society, being able to achieve, and also when everything is taken away from you, she teaches you and I how to persevere. This is our agenda for tonight. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At the first level, when you look at this personality, Bibi Zainab, she's someone who is incredible in so many ways. One example, Ayatollah Ali Naqi Naqavi, Naqan Saab, many of you may remember him, who was a professor at Aligarh Muslim University, as well as an mujtahid from the subcontinent who used to lecture. He said there are many dalils for the existence of Allah. There are many dalail for the existence of Allah. There are many proofs for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can have philosophical ones and many other types of arguments, theological ones and others. But he said, put all of them on one side in terms of the proofs of God Almighty. And he says, on one side, put all of the istidlal and all of the proofs of God on one side. And on the other side, put another proof, which he says is the itminan of Sayyid al-Shuhada on the day of Ashura. The tranquility of Sayyid al-Shuhada on the day of Ashura, in and of itself, is a muhkam dalil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that, if you and I understand that part, to understand Zainab, Zainab is that individual who on the day of Ashura, on the Asr of Ashur, the secrets of Imamat were conveyed by Imam Hussein to Bibi Zainab. What that means in totality, I don't know. But when Sayyid al-Sajjad, there was a moment where the Imam spoke to Sayyid al-Sajjad, and there's a moment where he spoke to Bibi Zainab in particular, and he discussed some secrets of Imamat, or ulama say this. And so that's something to discuss, number one. Number two, when it comes to this personality, as the poet says, one of my favorite lines, a simple yet complete line, and the poet says, Mushkilon mein bajaye Naade Ali, main to leta hu naam Zainab ka. The idea of Naade Ali has its place, no doubt. But the spirit of Zainab salamullahi alayha teaches us how to transcend even that, in the sense that how can someone have this ability and this courage to be able to speak to what she spoke, in the environment in which she spoke, and also not only the speech, the persona, her presence during Karbala, after Karbala, in the whole journey. She teaches us how to be strong. So the third element of this is sometimes, as just a matter of the future of our community, sometimes when we discuss women, whether it's Bibi Fatima, whether it's Bibi Zainab, whether it's Bibi Khadija, whether it's women in general in our communities, this conversation sometimes gets relegated simply to hijab. Now, I'm not giving you fatwa here. Refer to your marja on this. What I'm saying here is that a veil, a covering, a scarf, there's of course the hijab is first applied to men and women as a concept. Ayatul Mutahari talked about this extensively. He said the issue arises when people conflate the chadar with the hijab. These are two different things. Yes, for men, there's hijab also. You have to lower the gaze. For women, there's a hijab which includes the covering of the parts of the hair and the likes. But when we talk about this, that shouldn't be the only topic that we have when it comes to women. There must be a much deeper, richer conversation which talks about the experience in life, the experience in society. And when we look at these personalities, Bibi Fatima, Bibi Zainab, you look at them and you look at their life, you find that they have multi-dimensional personalities that are guidelines for not only women, but also for men, in terms of their inspiration to teach you and I, for example, how to have courage in life, knowledge, how to be a good, righteous person, how to be a member of society, how to be a member of family, many other aspects and dimensions. Because one of the emails and questions that I get and have been getting, and people like me, for decades or for years or however long we've been doing tabligh, is that, you know, Sayyid, comes from the sisters, oftentimes of all ages, that I'm more than a veil, I'm more than a scarf, I'm more than a piece of cloth. And when it comes to this, and of course that's the reality, but sometimes when it's reflected in our majalis, in our manabir, this aspect is not fully realized. So when we discuss Bibi Zainab, we should understand that she teaches us the totality of human potential, not only from the perspective of a woman, but also from a general perspective about her abilities. Not only are guidelines for women, but also her courage, her audacity, her eloquence, and many other aspects are general principles to give guidance for people across the globe, regardless of gender. This next element. The next element of what I want to discuss is how Bibi Zainab teaches us how to live in society. You see, we have a dynamic, and the dynamic is sometimes we're trying to achieve in this world. And by the way, Islam is not against this. But when it comes to this, and the riwayat of what we have been told by the Ahlul Bayt, we sometimes call Bibi Zainab Saniya Zahra, which is in its own way right, meaning the second coming of Zahra. True, she's the daughter of Bibi Zahra. But according to our ulama and scholars and the Ahlul Bayt themselves, they actually gave her another title, and that title was Saniya Khadija, the second coming of Khadija salamullahi alayha. Why? Because the scholars say the parallels between Bibi Zainab and Bibi Khadija are even more. How? You'll find that when Bibi Zainab comes into this world, we sometimes highlight her life in, for example, the likes of in Karbala. But Bibi Zainab had a life before Karbala. And if you study her life before Karbala, she was living a life of affluence. She had a very wealthy and a very well-established lifestyle. The principle that this lays is that the Ahlul Bayt, in their ways and how they acted in society, they were not trying to project being impoverished. You know, this is one of the biggest things that Urafa, true Urafa and mystics say. There's one approach to mysticism that draws attention to yourself. There's another approach to mysticism that draws attention away from you. So there's one school of thought that says that this comes from the inside out. So the first thing, if I want to be someone of spirituality, is the first thing I do is I change my clothes to be very, you know, impoverished or coarse clothing. You know, Sufi comes from Sufa, Ashabu Sufa, the coarse clothing that they used to wear, right? And so they used to wear these coarse wool cloths that were considered humble. And then there's another dynamic of the school of spirituality that says, no, spirituality doesn't come from the outside in, it comes from the inside out. Meaning that spirituality begins in the heart, the spirituality begins in the mind, the spirituality begins in the being. So sometimes your test spiritually is to look like you are someone who is a spiritual person, maybe. But sometimes your test is to look like you are not godly. Sometimes your test, for example, we have narrations that if Allah has given you, to intentionally look impoverished as if Allah has not given you is also a problem. Islamically, for example, to live in a way in a society that you are thinking that Allah has not given you blessings, that's also something that you have to be careful of. So sometimes in the spiritual realm, Allah tests you by giving, and sometimes Allah tests you by taking. Both of them are tests. The only difference is sometimes people realize one test, sometimes people don't realize the other test. Sometimes, for example, you have an illness, God forbid, may Allah give you all health, but sometimes there's illnesses that give you symptoms. You know, you have a cough, you have a congestion, you have this, you go to the doctor, get checked out. But there are sometimes many things of ailments that are under the surface that you can't tell. You're not aware. And eventually something comes known. I remember there was a reporter who had esophageal cancer. They didn't know it, but there was a doctor who was watching the news report at the time who saw it clear as day, and they called in and helped to save that journalist's life. And so the reality is what you're looking at and who's looking at it matters, and it changes the dynamics. Why did I mention this? The reason was Bibi Zainab, when she got married into the household of Ja'far al-Tayyar. Her husband was Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. And Ja'far al-Tayyar, just as a reminder, is the brother of Imam Ali alayhi salam. As you know, Imam Ali were 5 siblings, 4 brothers, 1 sister, right? So Imam Ali is the youngest of them, right? They had a sister by the name of Hani, right? And the likes of, you have Ja'far, Talib, Aqil, and then Ali, right? And at this junction, you find that Ja'far al-Tayyar is the one who, when the first migration happened, that Rasulullah sent a delegation from the Muslim lands, from Mecca towards Abyssinia. When he went there, he told them to go there. The one who was leading that caravan was Ja'far al-Tayyar. Now, that's important because it's also important when it comes to interfaith relations. Today, when people sometimes look at the news and the media and they think that Islam is at odds with other religions, well, one aspect of one we should appreciate is that Rasulullah, when he saw that early Muslims were persecuted the same way early Christians were persecuted, he sent the early Muslims to go to a Christian dominion and get amnesty and protection from a Christian ruler, Najashi, who drew a line and said that the difference between me and Muhammad's faith is this line, simply. Why did that happen? Because of the beautiful recitation of Surah Maryam by the likes of Abdullah ibn Ja'far, or Ja'far al-Tayyar himself recited these verses that led to tears in the eyes of Najashi, number 1. So that's first aspect. Second aspect is Ja'far al-Tayyar is the one whose hands were severed in the Battle of Mu'tah. When the Battle of Mu'tah happened, his hands were severed the same way Abul Fadl Abbas's were severed. And Rasulullah said he flies in the heavens like an angel with wings. Allah has replaced his hands with wings. The third element of Ja'far al-Tayyar is that individual and that person who, there's a moment when Rasulullah is in Medina. On one side, Ali ibn Abi Talib is coming, Imam Ali is coming after winning Khaybar. And on the other side, Ja'far al-Tayyar is returning from Abyssinia. And at that junction, Rasulullah says a statement for history. He says, I don't know what I should be more happy for. Ali bringing back victory from Khaybar or Ja'far al-Tayyar returning from Abyssinia. And to the extent that the Prophet said that Ja'far, you have come back slightly delayed and you are not part of the group of the expedition that went to Khaybar, so I cannot give you from Baytul Mal technically. However, can I give you something better than that? He said, Bala ya Rasulullah, please. And that's when Rasulullah told him, Namaz Ja'far al-Tayyar, you know, the salah that is recited. That's where it comes from. So his son, Ja'far al-Tayyar's son, is Abdullah. Now Abdullah, when Rasulullah went for condolences to the house of Ja'far al-Tayyar when he had been martyred after the Battle of Mu'tah, he saw this young Abdullah playing on the ground and playing. And Rasulullah said, what are you doing, my son? What are you doing, my child? As you know, there are 3 moments at least that when you do dua, Allah accepts it right away, straight away. One is when you see the Kaaba for the first time, the house of God for the first time. The second is when someone is truly mazloom, they are truly oppressed, and they have no one to call out for except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that cry is heard. And the third is when someone puts their hand on the head of an orphan with affection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts that dua straight away. So Rasulullah puts his hand on the head of Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. He says, my son, what are you doing, my child? He says, I'm doing business, inshallah. And so he was doing tijara. You know how we sometimes we teach children how to play games with, you know, finances and trying to understand that. So you say, I'm doing tijara, I'm doing business. And so the Prophet says, may Allah, with his hand on his head, he says, may Allah give you barakah in your business. And what barakah Allah gave him, to the point that he became the IMF and the World Federation and the World Bank in one. The IMF and World Bank in one, in the sense that he used to give loans, not only to people, he used to give loans to countries or states. That's why one of the theories as to why Bibi Zainab went back to Sham is that Abdullah ibn Ja'far Tayyar had a lot of property in Sham and a lot of ventures there. Nonetheless, having said that, this does not compromise someone's spiritual status. The question is the next part of the life of Bibi Zainab. When push came to shove and everything was on the line, she did not choose to stay comfortable back in Medina. She gave up everything in a moment. That is what Bibi Zainab teaches us about wealth, material. It's not a problem. The issue is, do you control it or does it control you? When faith is on the line, when religion is on the line, when it's all about what's really what matters, will you say, no, I have my comfort? Or will you say, no, this is what needs to be done? So that's what she teaches us. The same way Bibi Khadija had everything. She was called Malikatul Arab. She used to control the whole market, the whole financial commerce market. They used to gather in her house in the era before Islam, and they used to ask, she would listen to all the grievances of all of the merchants. And she had the ability to run the market. She could have dropped the prices and gotten everyone out of the market. But she would listen to people's grievances and set what's called a baseline, rate. And that is what was something that, but when it came to everything about Islam, she gave everything away, right? The same way Bibi Zainab, she gave everything. The principle that I want to teach you and I about this is, there is a power in this ability that Bibi Zainab, about courage, about audacity, and about perseverance, that I often mention. Perhaps no one embodies more this trait, in my mind, than Bibi Zainab. And that is the trait called grit. G-R-I-T. And this is something that many people have talked about. Professor Angela Lee Duckworth at the University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League institution. She said, what is that one trait that people who are successful in every domain of life have in common? Leaders in military, finance, economics, medicine, all walks of life. And she said, if there's one thing that I found that was common, it was this term called grit, G-R-I-T. By the way, Harvard University was sued about reverse discrimination, and they had to reveal what is their criteria that they look for students to get acceptance into Harvard. And one of the traits that they look for is grit. What does grit mean? Grit means perseverance over a prolonged period of time, meaning not giving up, consistently being able to endure. And if anyone teaches us how to endure, it's Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha. But beyond that, the concept of enduring, the concept of grit, she also teaches us to be able to see the beauty in the most difficult of times. Her line, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila," I saw nothing but beauty. In that environment, in those circumstances, how does one say that? It teaches us something valuable. That the last control that we have is our mind, our ability, what we focus on. And she said, I'm not going to give this tyrant the dignity to let him control my thoughts and where my mind is. Because he said, what has Allah done to your brother, right? He was alleging that Allah had caused this to happen. And she said, I'm not going to give you that dignity to think that you can control my mind. What Viktor Frankl said in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, the last of the human freedoms. Bibi Zainab said, my freedom is in my thoughts. I control what I think on. And I'm saying, ma ra'aytu illa jamila. From Allah's perspective, I saw nothing but beauty. That's one of the most valuable things. Today, even when the wealthiest of society members, when they're dealing with difficulties and trauma, what scientists and psychologists are saying, such as Adam Grant and others, when Kobe Bryant passed away, his family was dealing with difficulty. When Sheryl Sandberg, her husband passed away, the Facebook COO, all of them said the same thing. We don't have better advice than this right now in science, which is gratitude. When you're dealing with difficulty, focus on the beautiful moments that you had with someone. As difficult as it is to lose a loved one, as difficult as it is, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the time you had with them, the time, the concept of what Allah gave, and those things. Bibi Zainab exemplifies this in the highest level. And the final thing that I'll discuss right before we transition to Masa'ib, is that she gives inspiration to the heart to speak the truth. You know, even in our world today, they're talking about, ceasefire, which verbatim, the words were apparently the same that were 8 months ago, but the fiasco is played. Today, in our world, there's trepidation. People cannot speak the truth. Karbala is very much alive in principle today. And Zainab, salamullahi alayha, spoke truth in the most difficult of times, in the most difficult of environments. And there's a power in the truth. Truth which emanates from the heart. As the poet Iqbal says, Dil se jo baat nikalti hai, asar rakhti hai. Par nahi taqat-e parwaz magar rakhti hai. He said that statement that comes from the heart, it flies. Although it doesn't have wings, it has the ability to fly. It soars, because when we see and hear truth in its absolute purest sense, your heart and your mind says it's truth. Zainab, when she speaks to Yazid in the darbar, she says, Yabnat tulaqa, not only a courage, but also a knowledge. Or Zainab blends this the same way her father blended it, the same way that her mother blended it in the most beautiful ways, knowledge and courage. Today, you may have many people who are knowledgeable, but the knowledge necessitates courage, and vice versa. You may have some courageous people, but they may not have the knowledge. Why? Bibi Zainab said, Yabnat tulaqa. Yabnat tulaqa. In one line, she conveyed a whole sermon. Tulaqa were those people who on Fateh Makkah, the Prophet, which he said was his greatest success, the conquest of Makkah without any bloodshed, there were a group of people who Rasulullah said that if you gather under the flag and the amnesty in the house of Abu Sufyan, you'll have amnesty. That is, there will be no harm done to you. However, those people who gathered at the house of Abu Sufyan, they were the last of the last people to become Muslim, and they were called tulaqa. The concept was they were freed slaves, on the concept that there were many questions around why they became Muslim. Was it to save their life in the final moment when they were seen as, they were on the defensive? But there was a principle in Islam that tulaqa cannot become khulafa. And so she was saying inadvertently in an entire discussion of power and politics and Islam and theology, how are you even sitting there when you are from the tulaqa? You aren't supposed to be a khalifa. That eloquence that Zainab brought, it brings things to light. Nonetheless, you can talk about Zainab for as long as time permits, but her personality is more to hear about, but more to live, actually. The courage that she gives, the knowledge and the eloquence that she says. Some lines of poetry that are some of my favorites. The poet says, Khatam hai fasle kama, bol rahi hai Zainab. Khatam hai fasle kama, fasl meaning season, and kama is the bow, bow and arrow. Khatam hai fasle kama, bol rahi hai Zainab. Kaun bolega jahan bol rahi hai Zainab. तीरो शमशीरो सिनाहों के सितम के लश्कर, तीरो शमशीरो सिनाहों के सितम के लश्कर, थक गई सबकी ज़बां बोल रही है ज़ैनब, थक गई सबकी ज़बां बोल रही है ज़ैनब, और मुद्दतों बाद फिर से सुना है अली का लहजा, मुद्दतों बाद फिर से सुना है अली का लहजा, क्यों ना झूमेगी अज़ां बोल रही है ज़ैनब, क्यों ना झूमेगी अज़ां बोल रही है ज़ैनब, और ए यजीद इससे बड़ी हार तेरी क्या होगी, ए यजीद इससे बड़ी हार तेरी क्या होगी, वो तेरा घर है जहां बोल रही है ज़ैनब, ए यजीद इससे बड़ी हार तेरी क्या होगी, वो तेरा घर है जहां बोल रही है ज़ैनब. The poet says, Oh Yazid, what greater loss of yours, where that is your own home, where Zainab is speaking to you in that way, in that manner. The audacity of Zainab to be able to look at the zalim in his face and to tell him, you are a zalim. That courage is unbeknownst to the world, even perhaps till this day. This is Zainab, salamullahi alayha, ajrukum ala Allah. There's much to say, I'm leaving things. A night, Zainab, salamullahi alayha, how does one do justice to the musibah of Sayyidah Zainab? That if Imam Hussein alayhi salam saw every one of the tragedies that one can bear and endure, Zainab perhaps saw no less. Because after Karbala, perhaps one may say, to die was easy, but to go on living was difficult. Someone would say, I've lost everything, let me go now. But to go on living, Zainab teaches us how to go on living. And in fact, our ulama say, Ghadir, 124,000 people witnessed to Ghadir, yet the Muslim world history forgot Ghadir, yet Karbala, but 72, and yet Karbala is known in every corner of the world. And the ulama say perhaps the only reason is that Ghadir did not have a Zainab. Karbala had a Zainab, the flag bearer of courage, the eloquence of truth, Zainab salamullahi alayha, ajrukum ala Allah. I remember I was in the proximity of Ayatollah Bashir al-Najafi, hafidhahumullah. And he has a custom where he recites masa'ib for the zawar of Sayyid al-Shuhada who are in Najaf and about to go on to Karbala, for example. And he said, shall I recite for you some masa'ib? He was telling our group. We were just some students of the religion whose lecture. And we said, please. He said, shall I tell you about the night that they call Sham-e-Ghariban? The night where after the tragedy of Karbala, Imam Hussein has been martyred, and there are those children of Sayyid al-Shuhada who are scattered, and they are in a state of trauma after dealing with the difficulties of seeing their loved ones killed and butchered. He said, in that night, when the night fell, the children were running here and there. He says, when the children were running here and there on that night, he says that the one who was going to gather these children who had run off in different direction was Zainab salamullahi alayha. But he says that, you know what breaks the heart? He says what breaks the heart amongst many things is one thing, that when Zainab was running, she would run after the voices of the children, the cries of the children, the screams of the children. But when she was running, it was a dark night, and the ground of Karbala was not level. There were craters in the ground, there were dips in the ground, there were stones on the ground, and Zainab would take a few steps, and she would trip and fall on the ground. She would go after another sound, another cry of the children, she would fall onto the ground, and Zainab had to experience all of this. This Zainab, she goes, and on the way from Karbala to Kufa and Sham, all the way back to Medina, she is the strength of the women and the children, that whenever they were feeling a difficulty, they would look towards Zainab. But Zainab's masa'ib does not begin there, it begins even earlier. They say on the day of Ashura, Ajrukum ala Allah, give a few moments to Ali Muhammad on this night. They say that Zainab, if Zainab is being discussed, I'm sure that the Ahlul Bayt are here. I'm sure the Ahlul Bayt would accept the condolences. The Panjatan would accept the condolences. The Imam of our time would accept the condolences, because Zainab would have a majlis every day after Karbala when she got home for Karbala in Medina. Ajrukum ala Allah. They say one moment was when Imam Hussein was bringing back Ali Akbar from the battlefield. Zainab had raised Ali Akbar as if he was her own child, and she would care for him more than her own sons perhaps. They say that when Imam Hussein was bringing Ali Akbar back, there was a moment that he saw Ali Akbar, and the scholars say it's as if it seemed that Imam Hussein will leave this world, his soul will depart. The sorrow of Ali Akbar's body and his lash in front of him was so deep, it seemed as if the Imam would depart this world. At that junction, they say Bibi Zainab threw herself to the ground. Why? So that Imam Hussein sees her, and he directs his attention there so that he is able to survive. Zainab did this. But there's another moment that the poet says that how is it that Zainab saw the body of Ali Akbar, who she raised like her own, and this Ali Akbar is now the size and the height of his father Imam Hussein. How is Hussein to bring back this body? The poet, who is also a scholar, Zishan Hadar Jawadi, he says that what did Zainab say at this junction? She might have said, Lasha hai barabar ka bhaiya se na uthega. Lasha hai barabar ka bhaiya se na uthega. Main palne wali hu, godi mein utha lungi. She says that this mayyat, this lash is the size of Hussein, my brother. This son is his own size. He won't be able to lift him. I will lift him. I will lift him and cradle him in my arms the same way I cradled him when he was a baby. This was the heart of Zainab. Ajrukum ala Allah. They say Zainab, she controlled her weeping from Karbala to Kufa and Sham, to the point when they were released from Sham. A moment comes where Zainab says, I'm not going anywhere until you give me the heads of the shuhada. They gave the tabarukat. The heads of the shuhada came. One by one they came. The mothers began to take the heads of the shuhada. Someone took the head of Ali Akbar. Someone took the head of Qasim, the likes of Farwa. They say that that Layla might have taken the head of Ali Akbar. They say that Abbas's head came. Zainab saw the head of Hussein. She took Imam Hussein's head. They say they were two heads in the corner. There was no one to weep for them. And someone cried out, it seems that these young boys, these two moons, their mother is not alive. Zainab said, don't say that. Those are my children, Aun and Muhammad. But who is there to cry for the son of Fatima al-Zahra? Who is there to cry for Hussein? Ajrukum ala Allah. Zainab proceeded. She got to Karbala. When the roads diverged, Imam Sajjad said, oh Zainab, oh my aunt Zainab, one road to Karbala, one to Medina, where shall you go? She says that take me to Karbala. I want to see my brother. She got there. And what were you just hearing in the Masaib? The heart-wrenching lines. What was it? That Zainab had to see her brother in such a state. What state did she see him? May Allah not show any sister the day that she would say a line, Anta akhi, oh, are you my brother? To the point that the body of Hussein had been mutilated to the point that she was not able to distinguish immediately whether this was Hussein or not. Ajrukum ala Allah. Azadaro maine khatam kiya do jumle zahmat tamam. Zainab ne lasha Hussein dekha aur jitne bhi aizza qarib the lakhte jigar jo Karbala ki reti par the. Zainab फुरात के किनारे भी गई होंगी अब्बास से बातें करने, लाशे अब्बास से, मगर यही ज़ैनब जो उम्मुल मसाइब भी है, ये जब मदीने वापस लौटी अपने घर में मजलिस करती थीं, अपने घर यानी इमाम सज्जाद के घर में साथ साथ रह के इमाम सज्जाद के घर में साथ साथ मजलिस होती थी। एक दिन आया यही अब्दुल्ला इब्न जाफर तैयार आए, कहा है सैयद सज्जाद अपनी फूफी अम्मा से कहिए कि वो घर आ जाएं, जब से मदीने वापस आई हैं घर वापस नहीं आई, उनसे ये कहो, उनसे ये कहिए कि वो वापस आ जाएं। इमाम सज्जाद ने कहा है फूफी अम्मा घर चलिए। ज़ैनब उठी और मोहल्ले बनी हाशिम में अपने घर की जानिब चली। जब अपने घर के जानिब चली दरो दीवार नजर आए, ज़ैनब ने दरवाजा खोला, पता नहीं कौन सी यादें थी। ज़ैनब ने दरवाजा खोला, दो बिस्तर नजर आए, दो मुसल्ले नजर आए। ज़ैनब लिपट गई, माँ का दिल भर आया, कहे ओनो मोहम्मद ए मेरे लख्त जिगर, माँ न रोए। لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، صلى الله عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. معتم حسين يا حسين حسين.
Hussein, 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 Hussein. ज़ैनब ने कहा बाप के कदमों से लिपट कर, अब आए हो बाबा, अब आए हो बाबा। जब लुट गया परदेस में अम्मा का भरा घर, अब आए हो बाबा, अब आए हो बाबा। बाबा अगर आना ہی تھا خالق رضا سے، اس وقت نہ آئے، اس وقت نہ آئے، جب خاک پہ دم توڑ رہا تھا میرا اکبر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب کٹ کٹ کے گرے نہر پہ جب بازوئے ابا، اور کوئی نہ تھا پا، اور کوئی نہ تھا پا، اس وقت صدا آپ کو دیتا تھا دلاور، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب آئے ہو، جب فرش زمیں باں میں فلک لرزاں فشاں تھے، اس وقت کہاں تھے، اس وقت کہاں تھے، جب باپ کے چلو میں تھا خون علی اصغر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب آئے ہو بابا، جب لوگ بچا لے گئے لاشیں شہداء کے، حق اپنا جتا کے، حق اپنا جتا کے، بس ایک تن شبیر تھا پامال کی زد پر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب جب بالی سکینہ کے گوہر چھین گئے تھے، لگتے تھے تماچے، لگتے تھے تماچے، حسرت سے مجھے دیکھتی تھی بانو مزتر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب ایک رات کے مہمان ہے پھر قید سلاسل، اب سخت ہے منزل، اب سخت ہے منزل، بازار میں ہم صبح کو جائیں گے کھلے سر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب کیا آپ نے فردوس سے یہ دیکھا نہ ہوگا، ایک حشر بپا تھا، ایک حشر بپا تھا، جب پوش سے بیمار کی کھینچا گیا بستر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب شاہد رخ حیدر پہ بکھر جاتے تھے آنسو، جب کھول کے گیسو، جب کھول کے گیسو، چلاتی تھی زینب میرے بابا میری چادر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، اب آئے ہو بابا، اب آئے ہو بابا، صلوات
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى تسعة المعصومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى محمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن عجل الله فرجه فصحه الله مخرجه وظهوره. والسلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم ابن الحسن نواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.